As Aisha fights an arranged marriage and Emeka battles a criminal past, one truth threatens to break them both, but just when freedom seems near. A hidden family secret surfaces, one that could rewrite Aisha's destiny forever. The audio pages presents the algorithm of attraction. Chapter 1, The Sound and the Silence. The air in Cafe Kudi hung thick and sweet, a blend of roasted groundnut oil, freshly brewed cocoa, and the faint, metallic scent of rain threatening to break the humid afternoon. It was the unofficial hub of the university, a place where aspiring entrepreneurs haggled over Wi-Fi speed and academics dissected grant proposals. For Aisha Ademo, however, it was a sanctuary, a brief escape from the relentless logic gates and algorithms of her computer science final year project. Aisha sat hunched over her heavy laptop, its fan whirring a tired rhythm. She was tracing a bug in her code, a phantom variable that kept collapsing her entire database structure. Her strong brow was furrowed in concentration, the delicate silver hoop in her left ear catching the fluorescent light whenever she shook her head in frustration. At 22, Aisha was a study in focused ambition, her intelligence was sharp, her determination legendary among her peers, and her gaze, when fixed, could intimidate a faulty circuit board into obedience. Today, however, a sound broke through her concentration, something insistent yet smooth, cutting through the general campus noise. It wasn't the teeny Afrobeat from the cafe speakers, nor the screech of traffic outside. It was live. She looked up, annoyed by the intrusion, and found the source tucked into the far, shadowy corner near the spice rack. Emeka. He was not supposed to be here. Emeka Kolu, 24, was a fixture on campus, but usually on stage or holding court under the great mango tree outside the Faculty of Arts. He was effortlessly charming, his dreadlocks pulled back casually, revealing a profile that looked sculpted for the camera. Today, he was seated on a low stool, his vintage acoustic guitar resting on his knee. He wasn't performing, he was just playing, his fingers dancing a complex, melancholic highlife melody that spoke of longing and distant Lagos streets. He wore a faded, well-loved indigo shirt, and his energy, even when subdued, seemed to fill the room. He was the antithesis of Aisha's world. She dealt in certainties and binary code, he trafficked in emotion and improvisation. As the melody swelled to a complex chord change, he lifted his head, and their eyes locked. Aisha felt the jolt instantly, a powerful, unexpected current that short-circuited her logical mind. It wasn't just physical, it felt like recognition, like finally finding the missing variable that completed a complex equation. His eyes, warm and brown, held a depth that hinted at stories untold, shadows lingering behind an otherwise bright facade. Emeka didn't smile immediately. He paused, his fingers resting on the fretboard, his gaze holding hers with an intense, curious vulnerability. Then, the corner of his mouth lifted in a slow, irresistible smile, the smile that had earned him a following far beyond the university walls. Aisha, the usually unflappable computer scientist, felt a ridiculous flush creep up her neck. She looked down quickly, slamming her mental firewall back up. Nonsense. Focus on the code. But the damage was done. When she looked up again, Emeka was packing his guitar. He approached her table, not with the swagger of a campus celebrity, but with a quiet, almost hesitant confidence. "Is the silence better than the music?" he asked, his voice a low baritone, laced with the same warmth as his guitar's tone. "The silence allows me to hear myself think," Aisha countered, trying to sound cool and professional. She failed. Emeka chuckled, pulling up the empty chair across from her without asking. "A very organized mind. I like that. I am Emeka." "Aisha," she replied, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "Aisha," he repeated, savoring the syllables. Your eyes were fixed on that screen like you were trying to solve the riddle of the universe. What great mystery occupies the mind of the great Aisha? It's a database query problem. A foreign key constraint keeps failing, and I can't locate the source of the conflict. Emeka leaned back, surprisingly thoughtful. A conflict in the source. You know, in music, the most beautiful resolutions often follow the sharpest dissonance. Maybe the conflict is the source. Aisha stared at him. It was a completely meaningless, artistic analogy, yet, it made her look at her problem differently. The conflict was the missing link. For the next hour, they didn't discuss code or music. They discussed Lagos traffic, the philosophy of Fela Kuti, the absurdity of the university's bureaucracy, and the burden of dreams. Aisha found herself laughing freely, a sound she hadn't realized she was suppressing. Emeka spoke of his music not as a hobby, but as a calling, a way to tell the stories of their people. My parents, he said, his voice dropping slightly, they want me to get a real job. Civil service, oil company, they call music noise. But this? He lightly tapped the guitar case at his feet. This is my identity. It's who I am. Aisha nodded slowly. My father is the same. He sees my computer science degree as a stepping stone. A path to a secure, respectable position. He says technology is the future, but his eyes are fixed on the present, on who I will marry. A heavy silence descended. Aisha hadn't meant to reveal that vulnerability so soon. The unspoken cultural pressure weighed on her, the expectation that her brilliance was secondary to her eligibility. Her family, prominent and devout, had clear plans for her future, plans that involved wealth, influence, and a man they had already vetted. Emeka reached across the table and gently touched the back of her hand. The shock was soft, but electric. You are Aisha. You get to define your future, not your father, and certainly not society. His touch was brief, but it resonated. It was a promise, a challenge, and an undeniable acknowledgement of the bond that had been forged in the span of a single hour. Over the following weeks, the spark grew into a bonfire. Their initial meetings at Cafe Kudi expanded into long evening walks along the university's ancient, tree-lined avenue. Emeka introduced Aisha to his world, the smoky, vibrant open mic nights where he tested new compositions, the crowded markets where he found inspiration in the rhythms of daily commerce. Aisha, in turn, opened her structured world to him, explaining the beauty of efficient programming, the thrill of creating something digital from nothing. Their courtship was a study in contrast, logic and lyricism, stability and spontaneity. They were balancing on the high wire of campus life, but the real threat came from the world outside. One Friday evening, as they were walking back from a poetry reading, Aisha received a call. It was her father, Alhaji Ademo. Aisha, where are you? His voice was stern, lacking his usual measured calm. I am just walking back to the hostel, Papa. After an academic event. Academic, good. Listen to me carefully. Your mother and I have been making arrangements. The businessman, Mr. Adekunle, you met him at the lunch last month, yes. Aisha's breath hitched. Chief Adekunle. Late 40s, impeccably dressed, silent, possessing the kind of power that made even her father deferential. Yes, Papa. Good. He is serious. He has offered us a most generous proposal. This marriage will secure our family standing for a generation, and your future is guaranteed. You will not have to work a single day in your life if you don't wish to. The words felt like shackles tightening around her brilliant mind. Papa, I have my career. I am focused on my degree. I haven't finished. You will finish. But Aisha, your duty is clear. We are hosting him and his delegation this Sunday. You are to be present, appropriately dressed, and respectful. This is not a request. He hung up before she could protest. Aisha felt cold, the humid Nigerian evening suddenly seeming frigid. She turned to Emeka, her face pale. She told him everything, the words rushing out in a torrent of fear and defiance. Emeka listened, his jaw tight. No, he said simply, shaking his head. No, Aisha. You told me yourself, you define your future. We will fight this. Together. He pulled her into a fierce embrace, and in that moment, she believed him. Their love was a sanctuary, a fortified place against the pressures of tradition. But the external forces were already closing in. That same weekend, Emeka had his own reckoning. He was scheduled to play a massive benefit concert for a local charity. It was his biggest gig yet, the perfect platform to showcase his commitment and passion to Aisha and, more importantly, to her deeply skeptical family. He was backstage, tuning his guitar, the roar of the crowd already filtering in, when a shadow fell across him. Emeka Kolu, a voice snarled, laced with the rough edges of the city's underbelly. Emeka turned and felt the blood drain from his face. Standing there was a man with a face scarred by old resentment and wearing an expensive, poorly tailored suit, Dami. Dami was a ghost from Emeka's past, a dark, desperate time 2 years ago when Emeka, penniless and struggling, had foolishly taken a loan from a local syndicate to fund his first recording studio. He had paid off the initial debt, but the interest, like a predatory vine, had kept growing, and his attempts to cut ties had been met with violent threats. "I hear you're the big man now," Dami sneered, his hand dipping into his jacket pocket. "Sold out show, fancy charity. But you forgot the people who kept the lights on when you were nobody." Emeka felt a sick lurch in his stomach. "Dami, I paid what I owed. The principal was settled. But the settlement fee for cutting ties was not. 2 years of silence cost us money, Emeka. And now, you're high profile. That makes you valuable. The boss wants his cut. A large cut." Dami pulled out a crumpled, greasy photograph and tossed it onto Emeka's guitar case. It wasn't a picture of Emeka. It was a discreet, high-quality shot of Aisha, leaving her hostel, her smile bright and innocent. Emeka's heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drum solo of pure terror. "Leave her out of this. She has nothing to do with me." "Oh, she has everything to do with you now," Dami said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "The boss knows you're weak for this sophisticated university girl. Your weakness is our leverage. You have until the end of the month to come up with 3 million naira. Or we take something you truly value." He tapped the photo of Aisha. "She is valuable. Very valuable." Dami walked away, melting into the crowd. Emeka stood frozen, the roar of the audience now sounding like a distant, mocking echo. His past, the mistake he thought he had buried, had clawed its way back into his life, and now it wasn't just threatening his future, it was threatening Aisha's safety. He looked down at the photograph, then at his guitar, his instrument of passion, now heavy with the weight of death and fear. He had a choice. He could tell Aisha, confess the ugly, hidden corner of his life and endanger her further, or he could try to solve this alone, pushing her away to keep her safe. He heard the stage manager call his name. "Emeka. You're on. 5 minutes." He quickly stuffed the photo into his pocket, his hand trembling. He walked toward the stage, trying to plaster the charming musician's smile onto his terrified face. The lights hit him, blinding and hot. He saw thousands of expectant faces. He saw his dream. He saw Aisha standing near the front, her eyes shining with pride and love. He lifted his guitar, and just as he was about to strike the opening chord, the stage manager rushed back to him, his face grave. "Emeka, wait. There's a call for you. It's urgent. It's a very influential man. He says he's a relative of your fiancé. He says he needs to speak to you about the terms of your future, right now." Emeka stood trapped between two rising tides, the criminal past that threatened Aisha's life and the powerful family that threatened her freedom. He is on the stage, the spotlight is on him, the audience is waiting, and he has a photograph of Aisha's face in his pocket and a debt collector's threat ringing in his ears. Now, a man claiming to be Aisha's relative, likely Chief Adekunle's envoy or her father, is demanding to speak to him right before his career-defining performance, seemingly confirming the family already knows about him. Does he take the call, risking exposing his connection to Aisha, or does he ignore the powerful threat and play the show, sealing his fate with the criminal syndicate? The music, his only power, hangs suspended, waiting for his choice. Chapter 2: The Price of Silence. The hum of electricity over the stage lights felt almost tangible, a static buzz that settled into the pit of Emeka's stomach. The audience murmured in anticipation, phones lifted like fireflies, their glow illuminating expectant faces. He gripped his guitar tighter, feeling the strings under his fingers as if they were a lifeline. One wrong note could be a signal, a crack in his armor that would betray the chaos threatening his life. The phone call earlier that evening had been impossible to ignore, yet Emeka had made a conscious decision: he would play. He would not let fear paralyze him. Dami's threat had been clear, the image on the screen unmistakable, a photograph of Aisha, standing outside her apartment, smiling innocently, utterly unaware of the danger creeping closer. The accompanying message was simple but devastating: 1 month. And 3 million. Or she pays the price. He had stared at it for hours, the digits blurring as adrenaline and panic mingled. How could he raise that kind of money in such a short time without putting Aisha, or himself, directly in the crosshairs? And yet, here he was, stepping into the light, into the very stage that would remind the world of his talent, the very thing that could keep him alive if he could play perfectly. The crowd cheered, and Emeka exhaled sharply. The first chord reverberated through the theater, deep and resonant. His fingers moved almost mechanically at first, each note crisp, each beat deliberate. Then, the desperation crept in, like a current beneath his skin, and the music transformed. The melodies twisted and swelled, raw and primal, a sonic manifestation of fear, determination, and defiance all at once. Every strum was a heartbeat. Every chord progression was a silent promise: he would not fail her. When the lyrics came, he dedicated a new song to Aisha. It was a song he had never intended to perform live, too intimate, too revealing. But tonight demanded it. For Aisha, he murmured before starting, and the audience erupted, unaware that these words carried a secret weight, a declaration of love and protection wrapped in a melody. In the back row, someone's expression tightened. A shadow shifted as one of Chief Adekunle's informants watched him, eyes narrowed. The spy's clenched jaw was the only sign of displeasure. Emeka didn't notice. He only saw Aisha, her figure framed by the spotlight as she clapped, her smile warm and proud. She was his muse, his anchor in this storm. But he also knew, as he had known the instant he saw her, that the cost of this dedication would ripple outward, and the consequences were yet unseen. By the end of the performance, sweat clung to his forehead. The applause was thunderous, deafening even, but he barely heard it. He had survived the first hurdle. Now came the more insidious battles, the ones that couldn't be played out on stage. Later that evening, Aisha found herself seated at the dining table, a pristine arrangement of cutlery and polished silverware laid out before her, the room warm with the soft glow of chandelier light. The scent of roasted chicken and jollof rice lingered, but she barely noticed. Across from her, Chief Adekunle maintained his usual calm, smooth demeanor, though the weight of his gaze pressed on her shoulders like a tangible force. "This is a special evening," he said, voice rich and even. "I want us to discuss your future." Aisha smiled politely, setting her fork down. She had always admired her father's ability to control a room, to make every word land with authority. But tonight, that skill grated against her. She had spent the last year building her independence, her identity, her ambitions. And now, it seemed, all of that was about to be weighed against her value in a strategic business merger. "I appreciate your concern, Papa," she said carefully. "But I think my priority right now should be my final year project. The conflict in the source, it requires my full attention." Adekunle's eyes flickered, a subtle tightening at the corners. "Your studies are important, yes. But marriage is a matter of legacy, of stability." Aisha met his gaze steadily. "Stability for whom, Papa? The company? Ourselves? Or someone else?" Her voice was soft but edged with defiance. The room was silent for a moment, tension prickling the air. Her mother tried to diffuse it with a gentle smile, but the undercurrent of control was palpable. Aisha knew she had won a small victory by asserting herself, yet she could sense that her words would not go unchallenged. Emeka waited outside, pacing the quiet streets, his heart a drum of relentless urgency. When he saw Aisha approaching, his chest tightened. Her smile was tentative, cautious, and he knew it was because she sensed something had shifted. "I'm okay," she said quickly, as if testing herself, her eyes searching his. Dinner was tense. He swallowed the panic threatening to break through. "You looked stunning," he lied smoothly, hoping the warmth in his voice would convince her as much as it convinced himself. She frowned slightly, perceptive as always. "Emeka, what happened? You seem different." Different, tensed. How would he explain the truth to her? The truth that a man was threatening her life, demanding a ransom, and that every note he played that evening had been fueled by terror, was too heavy, too dangerous. It was just an old associate, he said, forcing a shrug. Someone spreading rumors about me. I can handle it. Her eyes narrowed, the brilliant analytical spark that first drew him to her lighting up. Emeka, that doesn't sound like you. You're scared. Yes, he admitted quietly, letting a single, truthful word escape. But it's nothing you need to worry about. I promise. Aisha studied him, sensing the lie wrapped tightly around the truth. She wanted to press further, but she trusted him. For now. Days blurred into one another as Emeka implemented his desperate plan. He scoured underground venues, taking gigs where the lights were dim and the money was high, often sketchy, sometimes outright dangerous. Each night, he walked into rooms heavy with the smell of cigarettes and cheap alcohol, and each night, he left with pockets heavier, but not nearly enough. To raise the rest, he sold cherished instruments, things with sentimental value, his first guitar, a harmonica gifted by his mentor, even a rare vinyl collection that had been his escape from poverty as a boy. The transactions were quick, secretive, each sale a betrayal of a piece of his soul. Simultaneously, he withdrew from his studies, citing assignments, library research, late-night practice. He cancelled dates with Aisha with plausible excuses, all the while maintaining a delicate balance of presence and distance. It was the cruelest form of love, pushing her away to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Aisha's instincts, sharpened by years of programming and algorithmic thinking, sensed anomalies. Emeka's stories didn't add up. There were logical gaps, inconsistencies too precise to be accidental. She decided to investigate, cautiously, using the hacking skills she had honed over countless sleepless nights. Tracing the call that had shaken Emeka, she discovered it was linked to a shell company, a ghost of an organization existing only in digital footprints and secrecy. Her curiosity, and a growing sense of alarm, led her to the university's security department, where a certain guard, an older man with a quiet, knowing gaze, seemed to hold more knowledge of the city's criminal underbelly than he ever let on. Their brief conversation hinted at connections she had never imagined, and for the first time, Aisha understood that the danger was not abstract, it was real, and it was closing in. Back at her apartment, the atmosphere grew stifling. Her father had begun restricting her movements. A personal driver now trailed her, reporting directly to Chief Adekunle. Expensive gifts, cars, phones, even an innocuous tablet preloaded with tracking software, were thrust upon her, a velvet glove chain that reminded her every step she was being watched. Determined to regain a measure of freedom, Aisha developed a countermeasure, an advanced tracking program embedded in the new phone her father had given her. She monitored, circumvented, and tested, unaware that each small victory only deepened the unseen web around her. Late one evening, curiosity gnawed at her. Emeka had told her he was studying at the library, yet her program suggested otherwise. The map blinked ominously, guiding her to a notoriously dangerous district on the outskirts of the city, a warehouse zone abandoned to all but the desperate and the illicit. Her pulse quickened as she realized the implications. Before she could formulate a plan, her old phone buzzed. An encrypted message appeared: "The sound you love is silencing the truth. He is a fraud. Check the storage room at the arts faculty." Aisha's breath caught. Every instinct screamed that she was on the cusp of uncovering something far bigger than she had anticipated. Her mind raced with possibilities: betrayal, danger, deceit. And at the center of it all was Emeka, her heart, her muse, and perhaps, her undoing. The warehouse loomed in the distance, shadowed and silent. The night swallowed her hesitations, leaving only determination. Whatever truth awaited, she would face it head-on. And somewhere within the maze of city streets and abandoned buildings, Emeka moved, carrying secrets heavier than any melody he had ever played. Chapter 3: The Dissonance of Truth. The storage room smelled of dust and old varnish, the musty scent clinging to the stacks of canvases and unused furniture. Aisha's flashlight cut through the dimness, illuminating scattered boxes and forgotten supplies. Her pulse raced, every nerve alert. The anonymous message had led her here, to the arts faculty, and she had followed it without hesitation. Her instincts, honed by algorithms and patterns, told her that the truth about Emeka, her Emeka, was buried somewhere in this room. She moved carefully, eyes scanning the shadows. Finally, tucked beneath a pile of rolled-up studio canvases, she found it, a manila envelope, slightly yellowed with age, edges frayed. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled it free. Inside were several documents, typed contracts, handwritten notes, and a photograph that made her stomach drop. The first document confirmed it. Emeka had signed a predatory contract with a syndicate 2 years ago, long before their paths had crossed. The terms were brutal, the kind that trapped dreamers in cycles of debt they could barely escape. There were repayment schedules, penalties for missed deadlines, clauses that seemed to strip him of every conceivable right. Her hands shook as she flipped through the papers. Then she saw the photo, a blurred but unmistakable image of Emeka being questioned by police, an incident from 2 years ago. Minor, perhaps, but damning when framed with the rest of this evidence. Her mind raced, reconciling the man she adored with the man in these documents. He had lied. He had kept this from her. A cold clarity settled over her. Her faith in him, in the man she had trusted, wavered. Could she reconcile the Emeka she knew with the desperation and deception revealed in these papers? She found him later that evening, the city's lights flickering over his tense figure as he paced near the rehearsal studio. His hands were restless, strumming imaginary chords on his guitar. When she approached, he stiffened. "Aisha," he began, but she didn't let him finish. "Emeka," she said, voice tight, words clipped and controlled. "We need to talk. Now." He nodded, swallowing hard, a flicker of fear in his eyes. He knew, already, that she had discovered something. The storm had arrived. In the quiet of the studio, she laid the document on the table between them. His gaze darted to the envelope, then to her face, a mixture of dread and resignation crossing his features. "You've been lying," she said, voice low but sharp. "Why didn't you tell me about this? About the syndicate? About your debt?" Emeka's shoulders sagged. I didn't want you to get hurt," he confessed. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I never meant to deceive you, Aisha. You have no idea what it's like, the pressure, the desperation. I was trying to protect you." Aisha's chest tightened. "Protect me? By lying? By putting me in danger?" Her voice rose slightly, shaking with a mix of hurt and anger. "Do you know what I found? The contract, the photo, this isn't a mistake. You hid your life from me." Emeka ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. I had to. The moment I told you, it became about you too. They know how to make it personal. And I couldn't risk that. Not you. Not anyone close to me." Her anger softened slightly, replaced by a sharp, analytical resolve. The hurt was still there, raw and jagged, but it was now tempered by clarity. "Then let's solve this," she said. "Not emotionally, but logically. If you're in danger, we'll deal with it. Together." His eyes widened. "Aisha, no. You can't. You'll make it worse. I can't risk you. I can't abandon you either," she said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere. But I'm going to help you. If we're going to fix this, we need to understand it fully." She spent the rest of the night poring over the contract, reading every clause with meticulous attention. Emeka watched her, a mixture of awe and guilt in his eyes. She was brilliant, her mind cutting through deception and danger with the precision of the algorithms she wielded daily. Slowly, he realized that her involvement might be the only chance he had. The next day brought another wave of danger, this time from Aisha's own family. Chief Adekunle's private investigator had provided undeniable proof of Emeka's past, the minor police incident, his association with the syndicate, and the predatory contract. Alhaji Adamu confronted her with a severity she had never seen before. "You know what this means, Aisha," he said, voice sharp, controlled. "You cannot continue this relationship. If you do, Emeka will be blacklisted, investigated, and your family will bear the consequences." Aisha's mind raced, but her voice was steady. "Papa. I understand the danger. But leaving him isn't the solution. Not if there's a way to help him and keep both of us safe. Alhaji's jaw tightened. You are my daughter. I will not risk your future or your safety for a man who. His voice faltered, unable to finish. You have my ultimatum. End it, or face consequences far worse than any syndicate death. Aisha's resolve hardened. She could not leave him, not now, not ever. She would fight, using her intellect, her skills, and every resource at her disposal. She sought out Beo, the university security guard who had first hinted at knowing more than he let on. She found him near the arts faculty, leaning against the wall like a sentinel, calm and composed. She handed him the contract, explaining the entire situation. Beo's eyes darkened as he scanned the documents. I've seen these people before, he said quietly. I tangled with them years ago, and I was forced out of the police because of it. You're playing with fire, Aisha. I know, she admitted. But I can't just watch him drown. I need your help. And I need to understand exactly what we are up against. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll help. But you have to trust my methods. They are unorthodox. Dangerous. And they don't always follow the rules. Aisha nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. Then teach me. Show me how to fight. Together, they began digging into the syndicate's digital footprint, tracing coded messages and encrypted communications. Hours passed, the office lit only by the glow of their screens. Patterns emerged, schedules, financial transfers, threats, all pointing to a looming ambush at Emeka's next underground performance. The syndicate planned to corner him, demand the remaining debt, and possibly humiliate him publicly. Aisha's heart raced, but her mind remained cool. She had been building a device for her final year project, a complex signal jammer intended to protect digital communications. Now, it would serve a real-world purpose. If deployed correctly, it could disrupt the syndicate's coordination and give them a fighting chance. By the time they reached the location, the warehouse district loomed like a dark labyrinth, the night oppressive and thick. Aisha activated the jammer, the device humming faintly in her bag. Beo moved beside her, his presence a steadying weight. Through the shadows, they saw him, Emeka, alone, guitar slung across his back, unaware of the danger closing in. Two figures approached from the darkness, Dami and his thugs, moving with predatory precision. Emeka. Aisha yelled, adrenaline surging. Watch out. Emeka spun around, eyes wide. Recognition flickered. Aisha. How? But before he could react further, Dami revealed a small, metallic object in his hand. Emeka shouted at her to run, but it was too late. Dami's smirk widened as he brandished the photograph, Aisha, smiling, completely unaware. You lied to me, Emeka, Dami said, voice silky but venomous. All this time, you thought she'd never see this. But I have it now. Aisha's stomach lurched. The photo was real. The deception undeniable. Emeka's face contorted with guilt, horror, and fear. Then, with a swift motion, Dami threw the object, a flashbang, at their feet. The warehouse exploded in blinding light and deafening noise, a chaotic storm of sound and fury. Aisha's ears rang. She stumbled, gripping the device in her hand, trying to shield herself. Shadows danced in the periphery. Through the chaos, she caught sight of Emeka, frozen and helpless. Beo grabbed her arm, dragging her to cover, but the danger was immediate, inescapable, and terrifying. The night was no longer just a backdrop, it had become the arena of truth, lies, and survival. Chapter 4: Dissonance and Data. The acrid smoke of the flashbang still lingered in Emeka's lungs as he stumbled blindly through the shadows, Beo's firm grip on his arm the only anchor keeping him upright. The warehouse's metallic walls rang with the echo of distant sirens, a sound that had no right to exist yet added to the chaos. Aisha followed closely, the small, humming signal jammer clutched tightly in her hand, her mind racing even as her heartbeat threatened to drown out all rational thought. Move. Beo hissed, pulling them into the side exit, narrowly avoiding the cluster of thugs blinded by the flashbang. The alley outside was slick with rain-slicked grime, but there was no time to pause. They ran, darting between shipping containers and over broken crates, until the night swallowed them whole. It was only after they reached the relative safety of the rented safe house, a nondescript, low-rise building tucked in an abandoned industrial quarter, that Emeka collapsed onto a threadbare couch, every ounce of his energy spent. His hands shook as he removed the strap of his guitar. For the first time, the veil of control fell from his shoulders. Aisha knelt beside him, flashlight now dimmed to a soft beam. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, adrenaline coursing through her veins, yet her eyes, so sharp, so analytical, were locked onto his. "Emeka," she said softly, "you have to tell me the truth. Everything." He inhaled sharply, finally meeting her gaze, his brown eyes swimming with guilt, fear, and raw despair. "Aisha, the photo," he began, voice trembling. "It wasn't just a threat, it's them. The syndicate. They said they'd take you if I didn't pay. Every day, I've been trying to figure out a way to protect you without dragging you into this. I lied because I thought keeping you in the dark was the only way to keep you safe." Her throat tightened. "And the rest?" she demanded, steeling herself. "Everything you've hidden, your debts, your contacts, dummy, everything." He swallowed, the weight of confession pressing him to the floor. "The debt was real, the syndicate isn't small. Dummy is just their enforcer. The photo of you. I was trying to keep it from being used. I thought I could handle it alone. I've been sacrificing everything, my career, my freedom, my future, just to make sure they never touch you." Aisha's fury simmered, but it was tempered by the depth of his sacrifice. She realized, with a clarity that made her chest ache, that he had been acting out of love, even if clumsily, even if dangerously. She brushed the sweat from her forehead and leaned forward. "Then we fight," she said simply. "I won't leave. I'll help you, and we'll take them down together." Emeka looked at her, stunned. You really mean that?" "I mean it," she said, voice steady. "And we'll need a plan. Not just for tonight, or tomorrow, but for the next step. You're not alone anymore." The following hours blurred into a frenzy of strategy. Aisha's mind, trained in logic, algorithms, and problem-solving, mapped the syndicate's operations like lines of code. Every communication, every financial transaction, every pattern of dummies' movement was a variable waiting to be exploited. Beo, leaning against the desk with arms crossed, watched her work with a mixture of respect and admiration. "You really think your computer skills can crack this?" he asked, his voice low. "Not just skills," Aisha corrected, eyes flicking rapidly across multiple screens. "This is my final year project, the culmination of everything I've studied. Security, tracking, encryption, logic flaws, it's all here. We're not just fighting brute force. We're exploiting the system's weaknesses." Bill nodded slowly. "I like your style. Dangerous, but calculated." The plan was audacious. Using the shell company link she had discovered, Aisha began hacking into the syndicate's financial records. Every firewall was sophisticated, every security protocol layered with encryption, yet her fingers moved with precision, navigating the digital labyrinth with grace. She bypassed alarms, counter-surveillance scripts, and traps embedded in the system. Each success made her pulse spike, each minor error carried catastrophic consequences. Hours passed, the night stretching on as lines of code scrolled across her monitors. Finally, she found it, a series of transactions detailing tax evasion, laundering operations, and offshore accounts. Digital breadcrumbs linked these transactions to legitimate businesses, dummies employer, shadow accounts, and offshore shell corporations. Aisha left behind a subtle trapdoor, a dormant exploit that would allow them to monitor and control access later. Beo grinned. "You've done it. That's leverage. Enough to flip this game." Emeka rubbed his forehead, voice hoarse. "And I have to be bait." "Yes," Aisha said firmly. "You'll arrange a final negotiation with Dami. He thinks he's dealing with desperation, but we'll control the board." The next day brought unexpected complications. Chief Adekunle, watching Aisha's continued defiance, upped the ante. Within hours, Aisha received notices, her scholarship funding had been halted, and her final year project code, weeks of work, was corrupted beyond repair. The messages carried a subtle warning: independence came at a price. Aisha sank onto her bed, hands trembling as she stared at the corrupted code. For a moment, the weight of the world seemed unbearable. But the familiar rhythm of her fate tugged at her. She stepped outside, letting the cool night air wash over her. Aisha hadn't meant to listen to the message that popped up on her phone. Her finger slipped, a random click, and suddenly a pastor's voice thundered through her headphones. His words were fierce, almost scorching, a call to courage, to rise even when your knees shake, to confront truth no matter how dark it looks, and to remember that God stands closest to those who dare to step into the fire. The message hit her like a blow, stopping her breath mid-chest. The words, simple yet profound, reminded her that strength came from more than intellect, it came from principle, from purpose. Reinvigorated, she returned to the safe house. Her grief was tempered now by resolve. We proceed, she told Emeka and Beo. We move logically, decisively. This isn't just about him anymore, it's about taking control. Hours later, the hack reached its final stages. Aisha moved with calm precision, extracting incriminating evidence while remaining invisible to the syndicate's detection systems. Sweat beaded at her hairline, fingers flying across keys, until finally, she had it, a complete dossier of financial and operational misdeeds. Emeka made the call to Dami, setting up the fake negotiation. His voice trembled slightly as he feigned desperation, but the act was convincing. Dami's response was predictable, a mix of greed, suspicion, and eagerness. The meeting was set for the weekly bazaar in an isolated but public sector, a chaotic environment that favored subtlety and strategy over brute strength. As they prepared to leave, Aisha used the trapdoor she had embedded in the syndicate's network to send an anonymous, coded message to her father. It contained snippets of Adekunle's business dealings with the syndicate, the leverage intended to fracture the familiar alliance that threatened her and Emeka. Then, the news hit. The television flickered to life with a breaking headline: deepfake video emerges, Emeka Kolu sabotages final year project of student Aisha Ademo. The footage, carefully edited and manipulated, showed Emeka supposedly deleting lines of code and smirking as her project vanished. Emeka froze. No, this isn't real, his voice broke with disbelief. Dave framed me. Beo's phone rang. The police contact's voice was tense, urgent. Beo, we've got a high-priority warrant. Emeka Kolu, wanted for fraud, destruction of academic property. The judge. Newly appointed by Adekunle. You're not bait anymore. He's a fugitive. The police are moving in, now. The safe house felt suddenly smaller, suffocating. Every route, every plan, every strategy had to change. The ground beneath them was shifting, and the enemy was closer than they realized. Aisha's fingers hovered over her keyboard, heart pounding. Every second counted. Emeka looked at her, fear and guilt etched across his face. Aisha, what do we do? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. She only knew this: they were running out of time, out of options, and the city outside was no longer merely a backdrop, it was an arena of survival, cunning, and raw human will. The chase had begun. Chapter 5: The Unbroken Chord. The market was alive with chaos, a riot of color, sound, and movement. Stores overflowed with spices, fabrics, and trinkets, while vendors shouted over each other, hawking their wares. The crowded alleys offered perfect cover, but perfect cover only if one moved smartly, deliberately. Emeka, Aisha, and Beo ducked between the bustling stalls, eyes scanning the crowd for Dami and his thugs. Every shadow held a potential threat. The police, unaware of their carefully orchestrated plan, could arrive at any moment, compounding the danger. Emeka's guitar case felt heavier than usual on his back, its contents now as much a shield as a symbol of his art and survival. This is it, Aisha murmured, clutching a small, inconspicuous device in her palm. We execute now. No hesitation. Beo nodded, signaling toward a central intersection in the market, where the outdoor advertisement screens loomed like watchful sentinels. The chaos works in our favor. Stick to the plan. One move at a time. They spotted Dami first, moving with calculated precision, flanked by his two hawking thugs. His eyes flickered over the crowd, sharp and predatory, before landing on Emeka. "There he is," Dami muttered under his breath, a sinister smile curling his lips. Emeka swallowed hard, voice steady despite the adrenaline racing through him. "I'm ready," he said to Aisha and Beo. "Let's finish this." The confrontation began with tense formality. Dami approached Emeka as if negotiating a deal, while his thugs subtly tried to corner them against the nearest store. Emeka's movements were deliberate, confident, masking his fear. Every glance, every nod, every micro-expression was calculated to bait Dami into underestimating him. Then, Aisha activated her device. The screens above the market lit up simultaneously, streaming the syndicate's incriminating financial records, offshore accounts, tax evasion trails, hidden transactions. At the same time, the digital trapdoor she had left in the syndicate system sent identical data to media and government outlets across the country. The market erupted into confusion. Vendors shouted, shoppers gawked, and phones were raised as people captured the spectacle. Dami's face contorted with rage and disbelief. His carefully constructed power was crumbling in real time. Beo's police contact arrived moments later, using the chaos as cover to move in on the syndicate members. Thugs were handcuffed in seconds, their attempts to flee thwarted by a well-coordinated intervention. Meanwhile, other officers, responding to reports of destruction and threats, began to converge on the market. Emeka felt the adrenaline spike. One officer almost recognized him, and he froze for a heartbeat. Aisha, anticipating the danger, grabbed his arm and led him through a narrow alley, using her knowledge of the market's choke points to keep them ahead of the officers while still keeping Dami in sight. "Go," she whispered urgently. "You have to get to the exit," Beo's handling them. Dami lunged suddenly, pulling a concealed blade, but Emeka sidestepped just in time. Aisha's quick thinking and intimate knowledge of the crowded layout allowed Emeka to duck behind a stack of crates, buying the precious seconds needed for him to escape the immediate threat. Amid the chaos, two familiar figures appeared at the edge of the crowd, Alhaji Adamu and Aisha's mother. They had received the anonymous data leak that implicated Adekunle and arrived just in time to witness the spectacle. Alhaji's jaw tightened as he saw his daughter standing fearlessly, orchestrating chaos, protecting the man he had deemed unworthy. His eyes met Aisha's briefly, filled with awe, guilt, and something approaching pride. Her mother, holding her hand over her mouth, shook her head with tears, witnessing the bravery, intelligence, and moral courage her daughter displayed. Adekunle's downfall was immediate. The public exposure of his syndicate dealings, combined with Alhaji's sudden withdrawal of familial and business support, sent him reeling. Within hours, investigations were launched, his influence evaporating as quickly as it had built. In the aftermath, Emeka was briefly taken into custody, the officers acting on the now public warrants. But the evidence gathered by Aisha and Beo, digital trails, financial documents, eyewitness accounts, ensured his swift release. His past mistakes, debts, and minor transgressions were formally resolved, and he emerged not just free but vindicated. The couple returned to the safe house, exhaustion clinging to their bodies, but their spirits buoyed by victory. Aisha retrieved her final year project code, restored from the backup she had kept, and finalized her report on ethical digital security flaws. The report was thorough, innovative, and nationally recognized, earning her a degree and acclaim despite the sabotage attempt. Weeks later, the city buzzed with renewed energy. Emeka had begun composing again, his music reflecting the struggle, survival, and triumph he had experienced. One evening, he performed at the small cafe where he and Aisha had first met. The intimate audience fell silent as he strummed the opening chords of a new song, The Algorithm of Attraction. Aisha sat near the back, a small suitcase beside her. A travel visa stamped for an exotic location lay on the bed of her nearby apartment, the culmination of a choice she had made, to leave behind the pressures and chaos, at least temporarily, and join Emeka on his first international tour. Her mother entered the room quietly, smiling sadly. "I'm so proud of you, Aisha," she said, voice soft yet carrying immense weight. You've earned your freedom. She held out a small, antique portrait, heavily veiled. Aisha took it, lifting the veil cautiously. The woman in the portrait bore a striking resemblance to her: strong features, resolute eyes. She was the first brilliant woman in our family to be told who she must marry, her mother whispered. She never fought back. But she ran. She left everything behind, not for a lover, but for a destiny so strange that our family has tried to cover it for 70 years. With Adekunle gone, the truth is about to surface. Your path is beginning to mirror hers. Aisha's heart raced. The revelation hit her like a physical force. Her redemption was entwined with a historical family conflict she had never known, a legacy of courage, rebellion, and mysterious choices. She looked at Emeka through the cafe's glass walls, his music carrying across the room, each note a story of struggle, love, and triumph. The choice lay before her: embrace the adventure with Emeka, risking the unknown of the international stage, or stay to unravel the secrets of her grandmother's past, a legacy that might redefine her understanding of freedom, love, and family. A thrilling, terrifying clarity settled over her. Her life, her choices, her future, they were hers to command. Emeka's final chord resonated across the cafe, the song concluding in a gentle, lingering vibration. Aisha exhaled, suitcase in hand, eyes fixed on the veiled portrait. For a moment, the weight of history, family expectation, and personal ambition collided with the promise of love and adventure. Her mother placed a hand over hers. Whatever you choose, remember, courage is not just about facing others, it's about facing your own destiny. Aisha glanced at Emeka once more, the man who had fought, sacrificed, and loved with reckless abandon. Then, she turned back to the portrait, feeling the pulse of history through her veins. The future stretched before her, uncertain, dangerous, and luminous. And she knew, deep in her bones, that whichever path she chose, she would walk it unbroken. Thank you for listening. Kindly like this video to support the creation of more audiobooks. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the release of the next story. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think of the story.